It's 11:11. I'm going live.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Yay!
Let's get it.
Making it happen.
All right, it's hot now. It's hot. All right.
I know.
Okay, let me see how we are on Facebook. Did you tag me? Are we having
Yeah,
those issues again?
we're live. We're streaming live on Facebook.
We are all the way live. Can we even talk about that though?
Can we? We'll find out. Let's try. See what happens.
Let's try to find out. Yo, welcome everybody. Thank you again for rocking with us. It is what is it? It's May 19th.
It is May 19th.
Is the it's the holiday or celebration of Malcolm X. It's Malcolm X Day. Yep. And we're going to go into that and, share some little perspectives and stuff, how we feel about, my man, as Ozzie Davis, who did the eulogy for Malcolm X, said, our shining black prince, which was always like, if you haven't, take some time to look up and listen to Ozzie Davis's speech at Malcolm X's funeral. Like it's just powerful, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's important because, it's he was a powerful man. So it's great that he had like a powerful orator, give the eulogy and everything,
Right. Yeah. Ozzie Davis is intense.
Yeah. So Lisa, when did you first find out about Malcolm X?
So the first time I heard about Malcolm X, it was like right before my 9th birthday. I remember it was Christmas. My birthday's right after Christmas, and I got this book, which was like a collection of short stories of African Americans in history, and it was literally like one page front and back. About certain people, about a bunch of people, like Crispus Attucks was in there, Madam C.J. Walker, Fannie Lou Hamer, like all of the, like not very common names, but of course like Martin and what's happening? The other lady, Rosa Parks. I'm like, the Outcast video was in my head and I couldn't remember her.
Of course it was.
I was like, who's the okay, so it had some of the common people, but it had other people, and so that was the first time I heard about Malcolm X. And I mean, I don't even remember what it said because it didn't say very much, and I doubt very seriously it was an accurate, like, full portrayal of who he was. But I just knew he was somebody who fought for people's rights. And I remember like talking about it in school a little bit, trying to understand more, and being shut down every time it came to Malcolm X. It was just like, oh yeah, Malcolm X, who we want to talk about is Martin Luther King Jr. Now that guy had a dream. That's how it always went. And then I was in 5th grade when the movie came out. And so I was in 5th grade and I begged my mom to please take me to the movie, and she did. And at that point in my life, I didn't know anything. I literally had no idea how Malcolm X died. I was not even 100% sure at that age or time that he was dead. You know what I mean? And so all I remember is like really falling in love with this person and just being like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then watching him get murdered at the end and literally being carried out of the theater by my older brother because I was weeping. I was just like, whoa. Yeah, it was awful. And then I got the autobiography and I picked through it as a young kid. And so I would say I was like 10, 11 years old when I first like really understood who Malcolm was. And adored him and lied all the time, dude. I probably got friends who are watching this right now who remember me back in junior high being like, yeah, I'm related to Malcolm X. I used to tell people that all the time because I just wanted so desperately to be connected to him. And I had no connection to my Black family. I did not. I was here with my Italian family. Do you know what I mean? I had no connection to Black people in my Black family, and I wanted so badly to be like, So sorry I lied if you're watching this, but also,
Wow. Yo, okay, that's kind of next level. It's kind of funny because I am older than you, but it's funny because you actually became exposed to Malcolm X at a younger age than I did.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I probably didn't get introduced to Malcolm X. Like you said, I probably saw him in montages of civil rights activists and things like that growing
Right.
up, but none of it ever stuck. When it
Yeah.
did stick was when I think there's this 2-volume set of books called World's Greatest Men and Women of Color by J.A. Rogers. And they're basically like 2 volumes of just like encyclopedia type entries of all these famous Black people. And it's not, I loved it because it wasn't just like the usual suspects. They would go all the way
Right.
back. They would do like Hannibal, and they would give like great bibliographies and stuff. I
Who
remember
wrote
him in
that?
there. J.A. Rogers.
I'm gonna find it.
Yeah, it's a classic. Everybody should have that book, period. Because it was one of the first kind of books that kind of put it out there like that. Very, very big in terms of Black conscious circles and stuff. In terms
Yeah.
of, like, did you read J.A. Rogers? Like, he was one of those Black historians.
Nice.
And then I want to say what kind of started putting Malcolm in my head was that era of hip hop was sampling speeches from Malcolm X a lot. So like Public Enemy, would have samples of parts of Malcolm's speech. There's a famous kind of mix, the no sellout mix, which is basically Malcolm X speech over beats, right?
I love it.
So like that's when I was like, yo, who is this dude? You know what I'm saying? Like, he must be important. So then I started kind of looking up stuff. But then I really want to say where it really kind of lodged it was my sophomore year in college at Wesleyan University. We had a Black dorm that I was in called the Malcolm X House. Okay.
Nice.
So it's called the Malcolm X House. You got to learn about Malcolm X.
Right.
The dorm was great because it was also connected, kind of like it had its own library also. And it kind of like pseudo like a mini like AFAM center. So I pulled out all books of Malcolm's, like his speeches, and I started reading his speeches. I was like, oh, this dude, like it kind of blew me in terms of like blew my mind. And but I was still only, pretty much cognizant of the speeches and stuff. Like I really didn't know fully about his life, the Nation of Islam, stuff like that. And like you said, the movie is pretty much where I got initiated into all that, because the movie gives you a timeline of his life. It gives you a timeline of strong events. So I saw the movie and I was like, okay. And then, from there, I already read the autobiography of Malcolm X and stuff like that. So, at that point I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I think like at that point, just all that stuff just came together. I was just like, this dude's for real, he's official.
So inspiring. I remember I tried to read the dictionary too, because I was like, you read the dictionary, I want to read the dictionary. I did not read the dictionary.
Right.
I do remember, I mean, there was at least like 2 years that I would go and just like take the dictionary and open it and like read those pages. I never had the patience to like actually read the dictionary though. But that was definitely one of the many things that is with me now, that it's just like my appreciation for language, for like words. There's a word for that, right? And even when I don't know it, I'm always inspired to be like, what is the word that I actually want to be using right now? Language is something people get lazy with. But that definitely goes back to my Malcolm obsession. Like,
right. He definitely, set it on me too. Of course, with my parents and stuff too, but he definitely said it in terms of like being Lord of all the worlds. Like, I can reach a guy on the corner, or I can go inside like the university and debate with your best professor. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I pretty much was early introduced to introduced to not having to do either or. All right. Because this is the problem that I feel a lot of people do. Like they fall into the either or with Malcolm or Martin. I'm like, who taught you that? Meaning that
it doesn't even make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense. And it's pretty much the powers that be per se that wants you to kind of pit one against the other. And it also comes from a place of just being not fully educated in terms of even who Martin was. You know what I'm saying? Martin, when people say like, oh, Martin was, weak and then Malcolm was strong, or like, yo, you know nothing about Martin then. You know
Very
nothing
little.
about that. You couldn't get your fucking house blown up. You know what I'm saying? And be okay.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like they haven't read, the works of Martin.
There's more to it.
And that's the same thing for Malcolm. I feel like they want to simplify it too much, and they haven't read the works of Malcolm, and we know and understand that Malcolm went through basically 3 phases. He had the phase where he was Detroit Red, where he was, doing that street life kind of thing.
Yeah.
He had the phase when he was under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the Nation of Islam.
Right.
And then he was in his final phase where he had accepted Orthodox Islam and left the Nation of Islam. And those there's those all important phases. I feel there's something for people to learn from each of those phases. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Right. Well, and the evolution of a human and just like how things change and how you grow.
Right.
And it is one of those, like, I don't know, who was it? It wasn't Ossie Davis. Now I have Ossie Davis in my head. But there's another like really significant and prominent Black man who had compared Malcolm X to like Fred Hampton. What would we have seen out of Fred Hampton had he made it? Do you know what I mean? Past his early 20s, what could we have seen out of Tupac had he made it past 25? Like had we lost Malcolm X in his early 20s? He would have just been Detroit Red. Like he would have never been the person. And who knows who Malcolm X would have grown into after that had he had more time after Orthodox Islam. There's, it's just the evolution of a whole person instead of just like Malcolm X, the like militant part of the Black movement. You know what I mean? The civil rights movement. Yeah.
And it's funny too because like people get it twisted. All right, meaning that we refer to Malcolm X as militant, right? But technically, he really wasn't militant. Like he basically just advocated what was the towing line of the NOI at the time, which was self-defense, right?
Right.
So like that technically, I mean, it's branded by others as militant. Like, the whole notion that I will hit back if you hit me, like that's militant. You know what I'm saying? And the contrast.
Not over here, bitch.
The contrast that there were definitely Black movements later in the 70s and stuff that could be classified more as militant. You know what I'm saying?
Militant, yes.
But and ironically, most of them were inspired by Malcolm X. But yeah, like his whole role of like self-defense, it's just amazing how that narrative gets twisted. You know what I'm saying? Like people threatening his family, bombing his house and stuff like that. And you expect him just to, sit cross-legged and, burn some sage or something.
Right.
Like, no, it's not going down like that.
Yeah.
I think that was great. Both of them, Malcolm and Martin, I think also gave us a great presentations of a family. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
Like they were both family men. And that's another way that I related to Malcolm. You know what I'm saying? Like he was about, making sure his family was safe. Martin was about making sure his family was safe. And like you said, a whole person, like even other civil rights leaders or civil rights luminaries, I don't think had their family as much on Front Street as Malcolm and Martin.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
And then I think another thing that Malcolm did, which is Martin was doing it too, but Malcolm, I think it resonates with a lot of people just because the places that he touched. He was really, really important in terms of me researching and understanding Pan-Africanism.
Ooh, okay, right.
Because he was interacting with, Muslims from other countries, but also just other organizations and stuff like that. And he was very, very, that kind of pushed his later stage of like, kind of open up my eyes, in terms of like, it's not just blacks in the Americas. Like we need to
Right.
refer to things in terms of global movements and stuff, and
Right.
understanding the global importance of blackness and black politics.
Right.
That was later picked up by other groups. You know what I'm saying? Even now,
Right.
this present day. But yeah, he was the first one that was kind of like, yeah, guess what? We can link with all these black people in the diaspora.
Right. Right. Yeah, because we didn't just end up in the United States.
Right.
Yeah. It was all over the place. That connection is necessary too. I've never thought about that. I've never made that connection, honestly.
Oh, and then also like the holiday, so the holiday itself, it's not a national holiday, it's not a federal holiday,
Not yet.
not yet. But the practice of it happened in Berkeley. It's official in Berkeley, California. That's where it started.
Oh, okay. Right. Didn't that just recently happen?
No,
Am I crazy?
The Berkeley one's been official since 1978. But there's other places that they practice it to various different degrees. And it's funny because sometimes I look online with people and they're like, we should have a Malcolm X Day. Like they're really anti Martin Luther King, but we should have a Malcolm X. And in my head, it's like, we do. And you don't know about it because you don't do your research. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like it's already happened, and it's not federal. But once again, I feel like
it doesn't have to be federal for people.
Right. I feel like just acknowledge it. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how we do it.
Federal, is it?
Yeah.
Juneteenth is not a federal.
I don't need the government to tell me what's important to me and what's not. You know what I'm saying?
They're usually wrong.
Yeah, they're always wrong. And then the other thing is, we know and understand because we see it already happen with Martin Luther King. We see that once these things become federalized or influenced with the government, it becomes sanitizes. Yeah, it's sanitized.
Yeah, it becomes terrible. It's true.
Like literally, the government that killed Martin Luther King, is now celebrating his holiday. Like, everything's cool. Like y'all didn't kill him. But
and they use him against us now. They try to be like, man, Martin was peaceful. Martin would have never, Martin this, Martin that. And it's just like, you don't get to speak for Martin. Mind your business. Who are you?
Right. Keep his name out your mouth.
When his own daughter, wasn't it just last year, Martin Luther King's daughter literally had to make a statement like, you don't know my dad. And my dad absolutely would have been out there on the streets fighting with people. This is inappropriate. Like, stop using my dad's words. And people argued with her. That was one of my favorite Twitter threads I've ever seen. White people trying to tell literally someone who came directly from Martin Luther King Jr. trying to tell her what I died.
Well, that's why it's so important for us to tell our story, to hold our story, and to know our stories.
Control the narrative. That's one of my, I got that from you, by the way. I always remember that. I'm like, whose narrative is this and who's controlling it? Mine? Me? Perfect. Okay, good.
Right. And that works on
it's
all
so
levels.
Necessary.
Because it's the same way that they'll do it with Malcolm, right? So Malcolm becomes violent. He becomes the type of Negro that you guys weren't supposed to follow. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. So like, it's important for us to, one, learn the history of our people, right? So like, it's important for us to know the history of Malcolm so that when people speak out of turn, that we can shut them down.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And Malcolm's one of those who's polarizing elements from people who just on both sides just don't know his history. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
And it's important, like I said, because he had an eye on the world stage, and he had an eye on bringing the world stage in order to make change here in the United States.
Right.
Because when everybody else is looking at the United States and be like, oh, wait a minute, y'all fuck it up. Y'all fuck it up. You know what I'm saying? Like, shine the light on us. So yeah, I definitely learned that from him. I mean, him meeting in Harlem with, Fidel Castro and things like Che Guevara and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was about it. He was, moving into a position that was dangerous for the United States. That was dangerous for, I'll say even the Nation of Islam. He was becoming a person who had a greater degree of influence than they wanted to allow someone to have.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And he was a crazy orator. You know what I'm saying? Like I listened to his speeches today, and I'm like, damn. Like I dissect them. I'm like, yo, this guy is next level.
And it's everything about the way he speaks too. It's literally like, you don't have to watch him. I mean, I've watched speeches, but literally just listening, it's like you feel the strength from that. I always really appreciated Malcolm because I felt like when I watched the movie, obviously it was different because that's Denzel Washington. That wasn't Malcolm. Right. But that moved, right? And when I would watch speeches of him when I got older and I had access to things like YouTube and I could be like, I could see it instead of just hear it, or you know what I mean? Same thing with Fred Hampton. That was one of the first things, like when YouTube became a thing, I'm like, oh my God, can you find these? I remember at first you couldn't. It took like times, like somebody loaded it, you know?
Right.
But so having access to things like that, every time I watch Malcolm speak, I mean, I see and feel, and it's hard to escape like how powerful and strong he is. But also, I don't ever remember watching him speak and like getting the feeling that he wasn't afraid, right? It was always very clear for me, decades later, watching him from the past, being like, this is a man who is just certain that it needs to be done. It's not necessary. There was never a kind of arrogance about him or like, oh, no. I never got the vibe from him that it was just like, yo, fuck everybody, I'm gonna do what I want. That's how they tried to portray it, almost like he was just this very arrogant, like uppity, entitled, really. But then when you watch him speak, you listen to him and you hear the power and the strength, and it's like, it's inspiring for sure. But then you watch him and it's like, yo, this is just a man who understands 100% that something needs to be done. He's so humble and calm, but he's confident and he's sure and he is firm, because it's just like, look, however it happens, it has to happen. This cannot continue as it is. And as like I said, when I was older and I had access to things, that's when I really started to just like understand how necessary it is. I mean, that's what Malcolm, I think, always did for me. It's just like, it's always necessary to be sure of where you stand and be willing to articulate it clearly, so people can't use your words against you and people cannot twist you against you, right? There was never any double speak. There was never any kind of like uncertainty or wavering. It's like, that's exactly what he said and that's exactly what he meant, and he stood by it. And I got a lot of that from seeing seeing Denzel Washington do it. But you know what I'm talking about. Like in the beginning, it was like, this guy, I really wanted to do that too. I wanted to be able to only speak if I knew that I meant it and I was willing to stand behind it and fall for it if that's what happened. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
No, he's an incredible orator, and just like you said, like I had great examples in my personal life. My father, different men in my church, but in terms of on the screen or outside of those people, Malcolm definitely was one of those who, when I saw him, I was like, that's Black manhood. Like, that's what manhood is supposed to be like, you know what I'm saying? And I love, like, me, I'm a word person, like I'm a wordsmith in terms of writing stuff, to dissect his speeches, to dissect Malcolm X's speeches, even to see how quick, in terms of Muhammad Ali, when he got interviewed different times, how quick he was with thought.
Agreed.
All those things were just like incredible to me. I was like, to have a mastery of, saying exactly what you want to say, how you want to say it, to hit that person in the right spot. I was just like, this is a master class right here.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And so that was one thing that I wanted to emulate growing up. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, me personally, I never wanted to be, I never was into sports. I mean, I grew up, I'm a hip hop generation, love hip hop and all that kind of stuff. I never wanted to be an MC,
Right.
But those kind of people, Malcolm, like, just showed me like, this is how you stand up right. You stand up right, perpendicular to the square. This is how you do things. And you don't compromise at your principles. And so that was very, very important for me to see all those lessons personified, because even though there's hundreds, thousands of Black men who fit that kind of profile, they were never, ever given the spotlight.
No. Yeah. I see. And I didn't have any of that. I grew up in Southern Oregon. So I got Martin Luther King Jr. I got Martin Luther King Jr., Martin Luther King Jr., Martin Luther King Jr. And it's not that I didn't respect him or appreciate certain things about him, but it was confusing. You know, it's another one of those things. As I got older and I realized I had never been given the full picture of who Martin was, it made more sense. But as a child, growing up here with my white family, surrounded by white people, and being, I mean, there are microaggressions. I was experiencing microaggressions everywhere I went, everything I did, every time I walked into a room, right? Like whether I was at school, whether I was at Girl Scouts, whether I was at church, like no matter where I was singled out for whatever reasons, and I felt it. And so everything that I was getting from Martin went wholly against everything that I felt inside. I wanted to say something back. I didn't want to be peaceful. I didn't want to be kind and try to be friendly with these people and make them like me. It was very unnatural. It didn't feel good. And I always felt like a square peg being shoved in a circle hole. Like I couldn't do it. It was uncomfortable. So being exposed to Malcolm X through Denzel Washington, but having that example was the first time that I was like, you know what, everything that I have felt and the things that, like, I'm allowed to speak on it. I'm allowed to not be accepting of this. And I don't owe anybody being friendly and kind. Like I'm allowed to say what I want and what I don't want. There was a huge shift for me. Like it happened in junior high. And by the time I got to high school, it was over with for like a lot of people. It's like all that shit that I had experienced in elementary school and, you know, constantly felt like I just needed to swallow and accept. I was really, Malcolm X helped so much because it was like, you are allowed and there are ways to do it. And look how much he got done. Like, and just the respect he commanded, even from people he didn't like, even from people he didn't like and that didn't want to work with them and thought he was a pain in the ass. They still were overwhelmed and unwilling to go toe to toe because it was like, look, not gonna go there. And I learned that from him. I was able to figure that part out of me because of him, because I had zero examples of that growing up here. I had zero examples of it, and I was just like angry and kind of bitchy because I didn't want to be friends with anybody. It's hard not to, you know. Yeah.
You know what else is interesting to me, and it's kind of like a sideways connection, but due to the movie, how he, for lack of a better term, for at least a small period of time, became a pop icon in the Black community. You know what I'm saying? Due to branding and everything else. Like, you know, there was that period of time, like you had the X hat, you know what I'm saying? The Malcolm X t-shirts, you know, the whole nine, see,
my
the whole nine, you know.
I still love it. I'm not clowning it. I'm just saying.
I know.
Totally jumped on that wave.
You know, and it to me, that also was teaching me another lesson in terms of how to package ideas and get them to the masses.
Fair, right?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like it was at that point that I realized that branding wasn't just for something like a McDonald's, right? So like, you see the golden arches. Yeah, you do see the golden arches. You know that symbol, you know, personifies all those things about McDonald's. You know, I love everything. You know what I'm saying? So all you have to do is see the golden arches, and all that is downloaded into your mental right away. And that happened with Malcolm X. You know, like what you saw, that X downloaded into your everything connected with it. You saw the t-shirts and stuff, it downloaded into your you know, your mind. And so it was the first thing that kind of made me kind of see branding and how to reach the masses in a different way than the normal channels. You know what I'm saying? And I still kind of use some of those lessons today, because the branding of the movie was, you know, genius. You know,
it was.
You know, and logos, everything else, genius. You know, and once again, you know, the same way that Malcolm tailored his oratory to reach the largest audience that he could, it's the same way that the movie, you know, did the same thing. And so I kind of absorbed some of those lessons also from him and from the movie.
It's amazing. It's exciting. What do you do for Malcolm X Day? Do they do anything out there?
I do the same thing I pretty much do for Martin MLK's Day. I read their speeches. You know, I find some of their speeches, you know, the Ballad of the Bullet, you is one of my favorite ones.
Yeah.
And I just search and I read and kind of reaffirm
Right.
that me as a person, as a Black man, that these are is part of my legacy and heritage, and I got to keep it fresh in my mind.
Right. Right.
And I gotta keep it fresh in my mind for forging the future too.
Right.
Like we don't always have to start at freaking, point zero. A lot of the work has
Right.
already been done. A lot of the
Right.
thought has already been put into it. We just have to implement. And
Right.
I think there's been a fracture in the generations, so that a lot of the newest generation is connected to the old, and
Yeah.
they feel they have to reinvent the wheel. And I'm like, yeah, nah, we got four wheels right here.
Right. They work.
Treads are straight. You know what I'm saying? Let's
Yeah.
go. You see the vehicle.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why I do to renew myself.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna make the kids watch a bunch of speeches this afternoon. That's all we're doing. I have a little playlist on YouTube already.
Right.
I've honestly been considering having Ezekiel memorized, but also I don't want to overwhelm the kid because he gets very sensitive about these things. He has a really hard time. It's very similar. It reminds me a lot of when I was his age and I was just kind of like understanding things. And it's different for him too, because like so much of the violence, like so much of, the trauma porn of Black people being brutalized is so much, it's everywhere. You know what I mean? And he has a really, really like hard. I had him watch that 8-minute special that Dave Chappelle did. He got so mad he broke a door. Like he was just like, at 12. And I was just like, oh, dude. So
I believe it. It's crazy. Like I can't even process how children his age being inundated with all of this type of, like you said, trauma porn information today. How they can process it. When I was little, I remember there was a television show. It was a made for television show. I forgot what it was, but the name of it. But there was a scene in it with like the Klan in their robes and with the torches and stuff. That stuff fucked me up. Like just a fictional portrayal of the Klan. Right. And not anything in real time. Like now you see Black people killed in real time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like even that imagery impacted me heavy as a youth. And I think this is something that we have to, this is why it's important that we give, our children and those that don't know the tools to understand and process this. And what better tools to process this than, those people who are luminaries in the field, such as Malcolm, such as Martin,
Right. Yeah, I made him a study guide when Black Messiah came out too. I watched Black Messiah a couple of times and it was like an 8-page study guide by the time I was done, but he watched it and he did the study guide. And I feel like that helped too, because obviously like a lot of that information was upsetting, and he was familiar with Fred Hampton. Like he definitely knows, because we always acknowledge Fred Hampton's birthday too in August. And, we've celebrated Black August before. Like we've taken time to write people on Black August. I was not great about keeping up on that. But the point is like, he was familiar, but watching it was like a very different emotional experience for him. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, it's same thing as when I first watched the Malcolm X movie. Like Malcolm X was murdered in front of me. Like I don't even think that I knew he was dead in real life when I went in to see that movie. I was not, you know what I mean? So it's like, that was like a moment. It's like, what? When I see that happen. But also, I mean, I feel like that's part of it. That's why I appreciate these holidays. And like, we've been celebrating Juneteenth down in Southern Oregon. Like we have an actual celebration for Juneteenth for years now, 5-6 years now. I take them down and we celebrate that. This is the first year that I'm aware of anyway. Maybe they had one last year and I missed it because of COVID, but they're having a base. Southern Oregon out here is going to be hosting a Malcolm X Day virtual event this evening, so we're going to be attending that too. Like
fresh.
But yeah, I feel like it is important, and I like community. So it's like when there is a Juneteenth event and I take all my kids to the Juneteenth event, I like making note of what, because this is still Southern Oregon and it's still all white people.
Right,
Not
right,
all.
right.
There's like a solid 20, 25 of us out here. But so I like to take note. I like to see who's participating and who wants to be involved. And do you know what I mean? It's something for me. And I mean, quite frankly, when we have celebrations like this, it pulls out the Black people that we have in our community, right? Or just the people of color who are looking for community because it's so sparse out here. And so then we get to know each other too. It gives us a chance to be like, hey, how's it going? You know, and make those connections so we can build bigger events next time and the next time, you know?
Right,
So
right.
I appreciate it a lot. I think it's fun. And it's just good for my kids because all those things I did not have. And it's so important. I just think it's important that kids understand history accurately and understand that people that we might idolize and turn into, you know, these larger than life things were still just people, like willing to do it. That's it.
Right.
The difference between you and Malcolm was his willingness. Right. I mean, and like other things, obviously, we're all different. I get all that, but it's like really the bottom line is the willingness. He was willing. Are you willing? Because if you are, then I mean, you can be like Malcolm. It's not hard. It's hard, but, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. Wait, I'm trying to remember at the end of the movie. At the end of the movie, is that when they had like I am Malcolm X, I am Malcolm X? Did they do that at the end of the movie?
Well, they had Ossie Davis. Ossie Davis was reading, right? And then they showed the kids like all around the line. Oh, it's so special. I love it. That's how I discovered Sam Cooke too, by the way. Because they played Change Gonna Come when he's driving. And I was like, who is this voice? What is this song? You know, and I went back to my grandpa, because this was before the internet and shit too. And I went back to my grandpa and he was like, that's Sam Cooke. And he pulled out all these records. And I'd heard Cupid a million times, right? Like, every time I hang out with my grandparents, they were always playing that shit. And I spent a lot of time with my grandparents growing up. So I heard Cupid, and after that, I've been obsessed with Sam Cooke since then also. That's a whole nother conversation. But really, like, that movie exposed me to so many things that I was like, beautiful. Yeah, I could sing you every Sam Cooke song right now.
Yeah, we gonna have a whole show on Sam Cooke, yo. In fact, we're going to do that at some point.
Right, we should.
We really should. But yeah, no, like I think that you speak to another strength of the movie, which is that up until that time, I can't think of another movie that was resonating heavy within the Black community. Since Roots, probably. You know, the Malcolm X movie, was probably the largest one to resonate fully throughout the Black community. Like, you couldn't be Black and not see the movie. If you did, we were questioning your Blackness. We're like, what? You know, I saw it several times. The movie was long. You didn't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you go watch that movie. Anyway. You know, and the other thing I think is important to also acknowledge that today also is that the few people that was in tune with Malcolm X, that he interacted with, patted himself after, worked with him, whose birthday is today also. So for instance, today is also the birthday of Ho Chi Minh.
Really?
Right? Yes. And if y'all don't know who Ho Chi Minh is, look him up, Google.
Please.
Because there's too much to kind of go into the whole Vietnam War, the whole Marxism, Leninist ideology, and how Ho Chi Minh was an inspiration to a lot of the Black Power movements in the United States.
Right.
You know? Right. Also, pardon myself, everybody. I know I sound mad nasally. I'm sounding here like freaking Humpty Hump, you know, on the back of my throat nasally. Yeah, shout out to Shock G. But yeah, I'm kind of congested. The other person who many people don't know about, but is so important, and the reason a lot of people also don't know about is because Spike Lee, and this is one of the detriments, or this is one of my problems with the Malcolm X movie, is that he didn't include this person in the movie. And there was another Malcolm X movie like a made for TV one back in the day, and they had her in it. And it was only
Her.
because of that movie
Okay.
that I knew about this woman. And this is Yuri Kochiyama, all right, who is she rolled with Malcolm X. She was a Japanese American activist. You know, she just passed in 2014, but she was literally there when Malcolm X got assassinated.
Oh.
You know, she was like close
Why
on
do I
stage
not
with
know
him.
about this person?
You
What
know,
do you think the reason? That's interesting. I'm gonna have to
I
look
don't
into
know.
this.
You know what? I'm gonna check that out because I
Yeah.
feel like it was done intentionally, and I don't know why. You know.
Right. Yeah.
And
Happy birthday to her too. This is all so
yeah,
exciting.
she was incredible. You know what I'm saying? Like she's a very important person in terms of the movement back then and everything too.
Right.
And also shows you once again this intersection um, as we are at this point where there's a lot of hate crimes being done against Asian Americans.
Serious. Yeah.
And also a lot of bad narrative projection in terms of trying to put the blame on the Black community in a lot of things.
Yeah,
It's good
I've
to
seen
remember.
some of that too.
Yeah, I'm like, really? No, we're gonna blame the white guy who actually shot the people dead. That's who we're gonna talk about. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
You know, we're not gonna talk about,
Bullshit.
but it's important to remind people that there has been intersections between Black power
Right.
and
Right.
the Asian community historically. You
Right.
know, there's also
No, I love that you're pointing this out. Yeah, it's really good to know.
like Yuri Kochiyama, like people need to like research up on her. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then also there were groups of Chinese Americans, Japanese Americans. I don't have all the names on top of my dome, but there were groups that sprung up inspired by the Black Panthers. You know, so like in San Francisco, especially, I want to say what was the Red Guard. I don't remember exactly, but there was, at least 2 Asian American power groups that were inspired by the Black Panthers. Informed also by Ho Chi Minh.
Right.
So there was always this intersection in terms of people who were doing the work. If you do the work, you end up in the same spot, right?
Right. If you're willing, yeah.
Right. So it's important for us to not reinvent the wheel. To remember, like, no, we always did this. And if we don't know about it, why don't we know about it? And is there an intentional hiding of this history so that we just can fight and kill one another and not unite against what we're supposed to be united against,
Right. That's awesome. I'm excited to read about this now.
Yeah, Yuri is pretty hardcore.
It is Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, isn't it? Isn't it AAPI Heritage Month right now too?
Good question. I don't know.
I'm almost positive that May is AAPI Heritage Month. So this is great. This is great for me. Look at me learning heritage. It's beautiful. I love that. Yeah. So also do you have more you would like to share about Malcolm? Okay. Yeah, no, I got you. Also though, obviously we're going to have to, send a rest in power to Paul Mooney. That really made me sad this morning. I was so upset. Can I tell you that Paul Mooney is just like one of the most inappropriate and honest, just like people in general, even when he wasn't trying to be fucking funny. It was just like, oh shit, he just said that, didn't he? He fucking told you. Right. I love Paul Mooney. I'm rest in power all the days, all the time. That's a significant loss to me. I feel like that equal. I know. Hopefully, you don't mind sharing the story. I hope you will share the story. But equal to Dick Gregory. When Dick Gregory died, it was just like, what? Like, there are some people that should just never ever be taken from us because they provide. There was just so much relief. It's like I have always appreciated Paul Mooney for being funny and honest and firm about where he stands and what he thinks, and not really giving a fuck if it was like a popular or acceptable thing to say. And for me personally, people like that are in the spotlight and are willing to speak authentically and openly like that and own it have always, and funny, so you can laugh at the trauma of it all also. are huge. So that's a huge loss. Had to share that. I think you might still be muted. I can't hear you. Oh, what happened to the audio? Can you guys hear him? Mm-mm. It might just be, I wonder what happened. I don't know what happened. Oh, we want the Paul Mooney story. Yeah, no. I hear something. It might be the plug-in. It might be the connection. That's another thing. We'll take some time to figure out this sound.
Can you hear me?
There you are. Yes, there you are. Okay, Paul Mooney.
All right.
Mooney story.
We back. Paul Mooney story.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Malcolm X, and it's funny because in a certain type of way, Paul Mooney comes from a tradition similar to Malcolm X, meaning that there's a whole West Africa has a rich, vibrant oratory tradition that plays itself off in various different ways that manifested in the New World. So
griots.
Yeah, it's basically griots, so like that manifests everything from how Black ministers speak,
right?
To playing the dozens, cracking on each other. Like they're all still the same kind of tradition. So even though Malcolm personified like the kind of like preacher inspiration kind of legacy, Paul Mooney basically personified the truth telling, legacy.
Very
And
real.
comedians, that's something, which is comedians of that time, very, very much so, for lack of a better term, were political.
Right.
They did like him, Dick Gregory. Like they didn't separate into like they weren't just doing things just to be doing things, and they would say to see just what they could get away with saying to white people also. You know what I'm saying? And so Paul Mooney is important to me in so many ways. Like you said, like he just kind of just laid it out, and I'm just like, damn, did he say that?
He did.
But he's important to us because at Supreme Design Publishing, because our Hood Health Handbook, for those who haven't gotten their copy, you play it yourself, go get your copy at SupremeDesignOnline.com. Use the code ALife, ALIFE, to get yourself 10% off the purchase. That's my little promo there. But the key is that Dick Gregory did our intro, okay? And the way that we got Dick Gregory to do our intro was that Paul Mooney's son was following. We basically put it out there. We need someone to get in contact with Dick Gregory because we decided we want him to do our intro. We put that out there on Facebook, whatever. Paul Mooney's son was following us. And he said, oh, well, I think he's good friends with my dad. And we didn't know that was Paul Mooney's son, right? Like, who's your dad? And then he's like, Paul Mooney. I was like, what? You're Paul Mooney's son? Through him, we got in contact with Dick Gregory, who then, blessed us with the intro to the Hood Health Handbook. So, shout out to Paul Moody's son, because, they definitely made it so that certain things could happen for us.
Right. That was a hand up. That's really awesome.
Right.
That's a cool connection too. That's interesting.
It also shows you that whole thing in terms of about 6 degrees of separation. Like,
right.
We were even separated like by like 1-2 degrees,
Right. That's so neat.
Yeah.
So influential. It's interesting, right?
Oh, definitely.
That you could be so influential without even knowing it. Think of all the people that were following you guys, even back then,
Well, that's the whole thing, the whole butterfly effect theory and everything, right?
Yeah.
You have more influence in the world than even you know.
Right. Right. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, sometimes you don't know how you're influencing people. It literally might be one phrase that changes, everything.
Right.
And it reaches the ear of the right person, so it's always interesting to see how that happens,
So true.
We're up.
There was something else I feel like I was going to say today too.
What were you going to say?
Oh, right. I got a new stuff. You guys, I'm getting an actual microphone. so you won't have to deal with my fuzzy sound anymore. That was the other thing I was going to say. This is the last episode. You're going to have to listen to Lisa sounding like she's underwater on all the recordings of our stuff. Thank you for hanging with me through all of this. It's so frustrating. But it'll sound normal one day. Don't worry. Hopefully, when we come back in June, in another 2 weeks, it'll be normal sounding. You guys will really like it. It'll be great.
Oh yeah. We have some upgrades happening, so definitely stay tuned for that.
Right.
And make sure y'all are subscribing to us on YouTube,
right,
and all these other platforms, to keep in tune with us, to let you know, what's happening, what's growing, and what's
because we got the IG, we got the YouTube, and when we get we're on Apple now, aren't we?
No, I still
Did
have
we
to
get that yet? We have not gotten that yet. Okay.
No,
that was
that
the
happens,
one, because
that's
it's like
gonna be
we're
a
on
major.
everything else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's gonna be a major one. We should actually be able to get on that in the next week or so.
Fun. All right, cool. Yeah, I'll drop the link for the YouTube channel in the comments on Facebook too, so you guys can find it and just go subscribe really quick.
Look, I was about to do an okay. I can't even do okay anymore. Big compromise.
Oh,
compromise.
Exactly.
Look, we ain't gonna talk about that. That's another show.
Right, we're not going there. If you don't know, then it's probably better. Just don't do it anymore.
Right? Oh man.
Oh, terrible.
Right.
It used to be like an Illuminati thing too. Isn't that like 10 years ago or something? Everybody was like it was like an Illuminati symbol. It's just like, look, whatever. You can't do anything anymore.
No,
everything has been taken over by these idiots.
Yep.
Whatever though.
All right. So what I suggest people do though, if you haven't read anything by Malcolm X, do that. You have a computer.
Yeah.
Look up a speech.
Yeah, it's 2021. Are there people like that? I don't want to know. Can we talk about that? How awful a human you must be if you legit if you're over the age of 10 in 2021 and you haven't read something directly by Malcolm, like, today is the day. Please make it happen. What the fuck? Read
one of his speeches. Start digging into the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Yes.
Look up videos of his speeches on YouTube. That's the assignment. That's the assignment.
Yeah,
do one of
yeah. That is, and report back to us. Let us know what you found out.
Let us know what you learned. Right? You know what I'm saying?
It's not just Malcolm X Day. It's legitimately his birthday. Like, this is the day of his birth. Like, celebrate and expand your mind. There's so much to know. Ugh.
Exactly.
Make a cake. I'm gonna make a cake too. I like to use people's birthdays as an excuse to have pastries, and I think I'm gonna do that. I'll do that with the kids. I'm like, if you guys see, I'm telling you, I do it for Fred Hampton's birthday too. I'm always like making cakes. I'm like, it's a birthday, so we'll do like learny stuff, and then we get to have cake later because someone was born.
Bad idea.
No, dude, so fun, so fun.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, it's worth the party. I think light a candle and stuff. I like to do that.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right.
Big day. So yeah. If you're around this evening, you can go to Base Southern Oregon and sign up to attend the Malcolm X event they're doing tonight virtually at 6 p.m. But also do your own stuff. You got all day. There's definitely a lot of things. I might be able to share that playlist I made on YouTube too. Yeah, I'll see if I can drop that in the comments also, just to give people a place to start. If my kids can handle it, you guys can handle it too. It's not gonna be super hardcore. Yeah.
Right.
Rad.
All right, y'all. We're gonna be here again next week. No, not next week. The week after next.
Oh, right. Yeah, just kidding.
We're gonna do June 2nd.
Second? I think so, yeah. I rearranged. We got new windows, so I moved my calendar and I can't, but I'm pretty sure Wednesday is the 2nd.
Good.
Yeah, we'll be back with another fun topic to discuss.
Another great one.
Better audio quality, allergies will hopefully be handled.
Hopefully. Oh my God, yes.
I know. It gets really bad out here this time of year. Especially because all your neighbors are going to be out like trimming trees and mowing lawns. It's like the air. That's what always happens to me. As soon as I see my neighbors start hitting the yard, I'm like, fuck, now I can't go outside for 3 days. Floating around waiting to make me sneeze. Worst.
Yep.
All right. Well, be well. Get better.
Yeah, I will.
Check in with you later. We'll check in with you guys in 2 weeks.
Yes, indeed. All right, y'all. Thank y'all for
Be
rocking
well.
with us. Peace.
Yes. Happy Malcolm X Day. Woo woo.